Welcome to our panel on pre-match for repeat applicants. I have Dr. Etisham with me. He's from India, and he is one of our students. He accepted a pre-match. And we also have Dr. Isabel. She's also one of our students, and she also accepted a pre-match. So without further ado, let me hand it over to them to introduce themselves. So Isabel, let's start with you.
Sure. Hi, my name is Isabel. I'm from Ecuador, and I am going to join the residency program this year in New York, and I'm happy about it. And this is my second year applying for residency, so don't lose your hope.
Thank you.
Sure.
Etisham.
Sure. My name is Etisham. I'm a medical graduate from India, from Hyderabad. I am also a repeat applicant. This is actually my third time applying, and I recently accepted a pre-match from Chicago, also my favorite city. Very happy about it, and since this was obviously my third time applying, I obviously was losing hope with each year. But yeah, hard work and persistence definitely helps, and then I definitely want everyone to know about what I did and how I did, and then how you guys can improve your profiles to not only get more interviews, but also to get a pre-match.
Excellent. So let's start, and obviously both of you are not recent graduates, so you've graduated I think 3 or 4 years ago. So what have you been doing since then? So let's start with Isabel.
I graduated in 2011. Actually, I was kind of practicing in my home country. I went to residency there. I didn't finish residency there. So I think everything counts. And whenever you fill out like your application, your ERA CV, everything that you have done, it's important. And I think that the fact that I did all these things in my home country helped us. And when I was interviewed, I was asked about this roles that I was doing in Ecuador. So everything counts. I practiced 1 year as a rural physician, and then later on I was like almost 2 years into internal medicine residency, and then I came here to the States where I was doing observerships and also research and hands-on experience. So during this time I basically proved myself to be busy and doing something, but at the same time I would say that there was moments and where I did have gaps, especially those where I was taking my exams, and it was hard to explain. So try to find a way to cover all those gaps.
Okay, thank you. And Etisham, what about you? Why don't you tell us something about what you were doing since graduation?
Sure. So I actually graduated at the end of 2011. And one method that I obviously did is I started preparing for my steps after I graduated. I mean, that's definitely something that I could have done before I graduated, like a lot of young graduates are doing nowadays. After I graduated, I basically was working at hospitals and studying at the same time. And then basically working and studying wasn't really going along really well, which is why I took a lot of time to give my step one. I actually even abandoned my studies for like a couple of months, and then I got back, and then abandoned, got back. I mean, it's something that a lot of IMGs do. And then that basically delayed my step one. And what I did is I did my step two, step two CK and everything. Came here, did my observerships and all, and then I applied the first time. Obviously, I guess, my scores aren't amazing. They're average. But obviously they're not bad at the same time. But I guess it did not really help the first time. So what I did the second time is, okay, I just got a couple of interviews. What I have to do is I really have to bump this thing up. So what I did is I did step 3 the second time, and I did more observerships, and then I was like, okay, more years clinical experience. Now I'm going to get at least 5 or 6 interviews. What happened is my interview count actually went down to 1. And that is when I was like, oh my God, okay. I mean, is this the end? Like, should I really abandon this whole idea? I mean, maybe this is not for me. Maybe this is just for the guys that get 250. I mean, that's basically how it was. And then at that time, it was already 2015, and I was like 4 years after graduation. So, I mean, fortunately, after that, research happened. I mean, I ended up emailing like hundreds and hundreds of universities asking for research. So cardiology research happened. It was basic science research, but then it was legit, good quality research. And thankfully, I mean, finally, I could not even believe it. I'm not even, believing it as I say it. But, I actually got more than 10 interviews, which is unbelievable from my point of view, coming from one interview, so obviously. So yeah, I think that this is how it was, and then I gave all my interviews, and then the first couple of interviews obviously did not go as well as I thought. But with Pawan's help, of course, I had a lot to learn. I only took his help after my second interview. So that is how things worked out for me, and then here I am.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you. So then I want to switch gears and ask both of you on the interview, application, CV, and preparation. What difference did you see from, say, last year's to this year? How did you prepare yourself differently? Obviously, both of you have matched this year. So there has to be some difference between last year or last couple of years and this year. So Isabel, we'll start off with you. What was the difference you did in your CV and application, and obviously in interview prep? I know you took a mock interview with Dr. Mansouri. So talk us through what do you feel was the learnings from last year that you applied this year.
Okay, so the first year that I applied, of course, is being new. I didn't know a lot of things. I think during the process, you learn a lot. So
okay.
Actually, the first time that I applied, I didn't have any interview. I was not called at all. So I was
Okay.
very disappointed. Then I found myself that I was like frustrated because I spent so much money and I didn't have any call. And when I started reviewing the programs again, like I realized that many of those programs were not actually offering visas. Some of them like wanted like recent graduates. So you need to go really deep into the details about to where you are applying and what kind of people they take. Because you can see the rosters also, and you can realize what kind of people they take. So that's one of the mistakes that I realized that I made, and probably that's why also I felt like, okay, so of course this people is not going to call me because I'm not part of or I'm not the type of candidate they are looking for. So that's one of the things I would say. Do a lot of search about programs, go into the details, and sometimes you cannot find things in the website apparently, but if you spend enough time on their website, you realize that actually the information is there. You just need to go from one click to the other, to the other, to the other until you get to the point where you want to get. So that's one of the things. And the second thing is that, of course, I made my CV stronger. And the only thing that I would say that really changed my CV this year was doing 6 months of hands-on experience, which included research and a university program. So I think there's a huge difference in between doing observership with private practice or like, a small institution and going to a big place. If you go to a big place, then doors basically open. And it's not only about going to a big place, but it's like following the right people. You cannot follow whoever. You need to follow the right people. Usually are the chiefs of the department, or some of them are program directors, some of them are, directors of fellowship or something. So find the right people to be the one who sponsors you. And then once you're in, like I would say that it's not easy to get a lot of opportunities. But if you are smart enough and you find the way and you are like very polite and asking a good way things, I would say that no one says no. So that's how I started doing research with them. And use your time in a way that is, how can I say, that you can take advantage of it. I had 6 months there, and in those 6 months, I tried to publish as much as I could. So publishing takes a lot of time, especially in
Okay.
university places. Since the papers that they publish are very scientific, take a lot of time. But even though if you don't publish like a randomized clinical trial, try to publish small things. And while I was there, at least I participated in 4 or 5 publications, and I did 1 book chapter myself.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I would say that use your time proportionally, like use it in a good way that you can really take advantage. And during these 6 months, I got recommendation of the program director of the fellowship. I got recommendation of seniors attending, and
Okay.
I got 5 to 6 publications and 1 chapter for myself. So in the 6 months, in the same institution in the same rotation. So use your time in the right way. That's my advice.
All right. Okay. So, Etisham, since you applied this year 3rd time, what was the learnings from the past 2 years? I mean, you're saying in last year you dropped down to 1 interview. This time you got 10 interviews. So obviously there have been some changes. You must have been very proactive. So talk to us about your learnings from the past 2 years that you applied this year.
Definitely. So one thing that I definitely learned is that if you had about 1 or 2 interviews, I mean basically less than 3 interviews, there's something definitely not right in your profile. You have to add something. It's just not about interview skills, or something like that. So obviously I do agree with Isabel when she says that we have to add research, but then research with publications obviously is a good thing. I also had a bunch of publications, but then a lot of people do not get chances to do publications. So what one can do, and what I did in this, is I just got behind my research mentor and told her that, hey, I do have research, all right, you're going to give me a good letter, that's all good, but then I do need publications and I do need posters. And then she's like, hey, the research that's going on, we probably can come out with 1 original article or research article per year, so you're not going to get 3 or 4 like how your buddies get. So I said, I'll do mini reviews, anything. Do you have any reviews or mini reviews pending that you're ready to finish? Maybe I could help you with that. Is there something I can do? And then with enough persistence, she was like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I had this one thing to finish. Why don't you finish this and maybe I'll make you the 4th author? I'm like, okay, that's fine. I mean, it's not the best thing, but then I'll do it. And then after doing a couple of those, she actually gave me an opportunity to be a 1st author of a review article. So that is how I just bumped up my number of publications. And then with regards to poster presentation, pretty much the same thing. Just try to find out in your immediate area what are those poster conferences or whatever going on. So once you get to know about them, you can tell your research mentor that, hey, there's something going on. Is there something I can present? Do you have a piece, an abstract that I can present? And then with enough persistence, obviously she was a little pissed off that I was, really getting behind her. And then she was like, hey, you can't do this. But, and I'm not the kind of guy who really gets behind people and, troubles them again and again. But then I was like, hey, do I want to be sitting at home for 1 full year again? Maybe not. Maybe not. Yeah. So yeah, I'd rather do this and then, have her grumble than me sitting at home and just crying about not matching and getting all depressed. So that's definitely one thing I would say. Another thing of how I increase my interview count is what a lot of IMGs do. I mean, through my matching, what should I call it? Through my interview season, I've come across a lot of people, a lot of friends, who had good number of interviews, like 4, 5, 6, and then a lot of times they'd be like, okay, I'm actually trying to talk about connections here. So, okay, they know someone in some program and then they want to get an interview. They're really shy about it. You cannot be shy. You cannot be shy. You have to be aggressive about it. Of course, if you don't know that person that well, there's that little bit of shyness there that you don't really want to approach and trouble them again and again. but with the right amount of assertiveness and with the right amount of pressure, in the right way of course, being respectful and stuff, you actually can get the stuff done. I mean, I've gotten interviews from places where I could not even imagine just because I literally talked to that person nicely and said, can you please email the PD, one time. And that guy's like, hey, I graduated from there 10 years back. I don't even know if the PD remembers me. I'm like, hey, I get it. Could you please send that email? And then still they're like, and then you go like, hey, how about I write an email? We just forward it. They're like, okay, you know what? Yeah, go ahead. All right, you know what? Let's do it. And then, of course, I write an amazing email talking about myself, and then all he needs to do is forward it. Because when you have people to write an email themselves, they don't really want to do it because they're like, maybe he doesn't know me, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But then when you come like this, they're like, okay, he's doing all the work. I might as well just forward it. I'm not that bad a person. I'm a doctor. I want to help people. And then they eventually tend to do it. So I got like 4 or 5 of my interviews like that. So, yeah.
So Isabel, let me just ask you here, when it came to the interviews, actual getting the interviews, did you just apply? Did you talk to people? How did you get the interviews this year?
Apply. I just apply. I would say that the recommendations letters, first of all, I would say that wherever you go, you need that people knows you. Like, make sure people know your name, that people knows your name and see you everywhere. Like, if they are having, like, the morning runs, go to the morning runs. If they are having lunch, go to lunch with them. If they are having coffee, go to coffee with them. It's like, wherever they are, like, go. If it's like, to say that it's surgery or something like that, go to the surgery. As long as that, of course, without breaking the rules, but as long as they allowed you, and if they let you do something, and if they let you run the patients and give you a patient, make sure that you present these patients and know your patients. That's one of the things. And the second thing is, like, spend enough time in one place. Because, like, it's not that because you spend 1 month in one place, another month in another place, and another month in another place, you're going to get better connections. I don't think that's the way it works. Spend enough time in the same place so people know you, and these same people can refer you. This same people is the one that is going to help you getting into research. And as he said, it's not that they are going to give you the first author in the first time. It's like it takes time. And even though if they give you a third or fourth author, it's the way to start. Like, no one is going to offer you first author since the beginning because they don't know how you write, how responsible you are, anything. So just, like, take whatever they give you and then start climbing up. That's one of the things. Then I would say that second thing is, like, in my case, yes, a couple of the fellows and residents, like, email their program coordinators and directors from their residency program. But actually, I didn't got any kind of interview that way. I would say that what helped me the most was actually getting the hands-on experience, and that my recommendation letter said that I was rounding patients, I was seeing patients, and I was responsible for patients. So that I had access to the medical history, to the electronic medical records, and that I was performing the same level as a resident. And I was doing exactly the same responsibilities. I was coming to the hospital every morning at 6 a.m. to run patients. And I was leaving with residents at 5 p.m. That's the way you get it. So, and that's the way, I would say that my recommendations letter were focused in that way. And that's what probably I would say that opened the doors most for me. And it's not that I thought about asking them the calls, but actually the interviews came without their calls.
Okay. Very good. All right, so last couple of topics, I want to switch gears and now talk about your actual interview performance. So starting with Isabel, I know you did a mock interview with Dr. Mansouri, and so we want to know how that helped, of course, and what kind of questions were asked in the actual interview. How did you prepare for the interviews once you had the calls?
Okay, so of course for the first interview, I was very nervous, and I was unsure since it was like, even though I applied the year before, I didn't got any interview, so I was not sure what I was supposed to say, what I was supposed to answer. I think that as everyone else, like I saw a couple of videos on YouTube first just to kind of understand how it works. Then I started reading some questions from the Successful Match. I read the book,
Mm-hmm.
and and then I started preparing my questions, like my answers. I'm sorry. So once I had this kind of already set up, I did the interview with Dr. Mensuri, and he was very
Mm-hmm.
helpful. I would say because he actually prepared the setting and the questions as if it was a
Okay.
real interview. So it gave me the feel, okay, this is how is it going to be? So I'm not going to be surprised the first time that I go into my interview and like act like I am lost or nervous or something. So actually it did work very well. His questions were very similar, I would say, to a real interview.
Okay.
And his recommendations was really good also because it really helped me to direct or focus more my answers because they were a little bit extensive and long, and sometimes like I was kind of talking in circles probably. So it really helped me to direct my the way I answer things. I think my answers, he said that they were good, but I just needed to be a little bit more specific. So that's what I did. And after that, I kept practicing. I get just go to groups or forums where people want to practice and set up with them like Skype interviews and practice with them. And I would say, like in my case, like sometimes you don't want to memorize your answers, but you need to be very, very clear about what you're going to answer. It's not that you have time at that moment to make up something. Even though if you have in
Mm.
your mind a couple of points about what you want to say, it's like you need a couple of lines memorized or like very standard. So so you can really answer properly the questions. That's one of the things. And
Okay.
I would say that the questions, yes, they change very much in between a community program and a university program. Are totally
Okay.
different.
Okay. All right. And Etisham, now coming to you, how did you prepare? And I know you took a different plan with us on webinar and just mentoring. So how did you prepare? How did we help you? And obviously, how did
Sure.
you translate it into your success?
Sure. So I'm definitely going to tell you that last few years, all my interview preparation was through Google, and that is definitely not the way to prepare. I just would read the like, okay, that's probably what Google says. So I'm just going to say that, and then it's probably going to work because everyone probably says the same thing. I kind of personalize
Exactly.
it a little bit, and then I definitely found out that that's not how it works because it's just not like that. So how you helped me, Pawan, definitely is that you never gave me an answer that Atisham, this is what you're supposed to say, but then you gave me a tactic. You basically showed me that, okay, that's what they want to hear. I mean, you didn't tell me exactly what to say, but then uh, the way you basically trained me that you're supposed to say a point and then you have to have something backing, like a story backing. I thought
Mm-hmm.
that was absolutely wonderful. I mean, that literally, that one thing, it helped me so much. I had like 15 life stories ready for every situation, for every little scenario that they would ask me. I had one story ready. And then I think that not only improved my interview performance, but also my confidence when I walked into the interview, when I was speaking to the residents, when I was speaking to the fellow applicants. I just felt that my confidence was way higher compared to my interviews that I attended during my last couple of years, where I was literally like, okay, he's an AMG, he's a Caribbean grad, I'm from India. I mean, they're probably not going to like me because they're probably going to give a better interview than me. But this time, Caribbean, non-Caribbean, AMG, I didn't care because I knew I was there.
Very good.
because I knew, because I knew I was at par with them. And then even when you converse with them, in that room that they make you wait and all, I never made them feel that I was any inferior to them. And it's not only that, but you also helped me with the post-interview communication. You also gave me tactics that how to approach them and, what reasons to come up with. I'm not going to say everything over here because I don't want to let all your secrets out. But you definitely helped me with, how to let them know that you're still interested, not just, send them emails every now and then, bug them, but then send them emails at the right time with the right amount of content in it. So obviously, thank you so much for that. I mean,
Right.
This is unbelievable.
Well done, well done. All right, now let's switch to your actual pre-match interview, which both of you have accepted at different places. So Isabel, starting with you, was the pre-match interview in any way or shape different than the other interviews, or do you think it was the same kind of structure? It was the same interviews as others. Do you feel anything different was they asked in the pre-match interview? Were they really trying to ask you whether you will join now? How many interviews did you have? Or it was just a standard interview?
No, I would say that it was a little bit different. Like, as I said, Prematch or community programs differ a lot from university programs. I really felt my Prematch interview was a very, very friendly interview. I would say that what they were trying to say is like, okay, can I hang out with this person? Can I stand this person? I'm going to be working with this person many, many hours a day. Is this person funny enough? Is this person talkable enough? It's like, is this person kind enough? That's the way I felt like the Prematch interview was. It was more relaxed, friendly. I was able, thankfully, I was able to, with everyone who interviewed me, I was able to make contact, and we even joked around the interview. So it felt very, very relaxing, actually, for me. And it was my first interview, and it was actually the one from I got the pre-match. So it was first interview. That was my first interview.
Oh, that was your first. Okay.
Yeah, it was my first time, my first interview. And I got the pre-match, but I still went to the other interviews. So, yes, and I still decided to go to the other interviews, so I don't lose my chance to see how it works different in other institutions. And I would say university programs are different. Like the way they approach you, I would say that they are a little bit more intimidating to me, at least. First of all, yes. First of all, because I was interviewing with only American graduates, basically, not even Canadian. I was mostly interviewing with American grads. So that's one of the things. The other thing is that since they are a university program, they want to know what are your plans for the future. They want to hear that you have an instructor for your life. They want to know, they don't want kind of vague answers. They want straightforward answers. Like why I really need, how I can convince the other people that is going to be ranking that you should be in this program. Very straightforward questions, one after the other, really 10, 20 questions. There was a program that I was asked at least 20 questions, different.
Wow.
And it's yes. And it was like, okay, why should I rank you? Why I shouldn't? Very straightforward. What are your plans? What do you have to offer me? But it's in a way, the way that they project it is different than the way that community programs approach. So that's a little bit different. Yeah, I would say that's a little bit different. But my pre-match interview was very friendly. And the difference also was that in the pre-match I had, before the interview, they gave us, I think it was 5 cases, 5 scenarios where they ask you for diagnosis and management, they give you the space to write it down. So while in the university programs, I was not asked a single question about clinical management or anything. But community programs, I was asked about that. Those kind of things, how do you manage this or that. Yeah, that was the difference that I noticed the most in between those type of interviews.
Okay, okay. And Etisham, what was your experience? Was this pre-match interview in any way different, or was it similar
Sure.
to the other 9 or 10 you attended?
I had two pre-match interviews. I
Okay.
actually scheduled them early in my interview season because I heard that, okay, if they like you early enough, they won't, you won't be having much competition. They may take you.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously,
Mm-hmm.
I got the pre-match right before the whole match thing was going to end. So I actually thought that, they weren't offering a pre-match right up until the end. Well, when it comes to my pre-match interviews, I definitely feel that they were pretty much the same like the others. But then there were a bunch of things that they asked that no one else asked. They
I
asked me
see.
about my number of interviews, and
Okay.
then they yes, and then they also looked at my profile and they were like, "Why did you write step one like 2 years back, and why are you applying now?"
Mm.
And I was like, "Yeah, because I didn't match." They're like, "Yeah, but still, that was 2 years back, though." I'm like, "Yeah, I didn't match 2 times," and kind of felt a little. It felt a little silly, basically revealing that to them. But at the same time, I thought being honest was the way to go instead of just saying something like, "No, I wanted more clinical experience," this and that. And obviously, the other pre-match interview, they had medical scenarios. It was basically written on papers, and you had to fill them up. You had to write the diagnosis and everything. So that was there. But then that interview, that was super short. Like, they literally talked to you for exactly 2 minutes, and I was like, okay, if
Ah,
they're gonna, if they're gonna offer you a pre-match, so after 2 minutes of talking, they probably
2 minutes.
already have, they'll probably already have it in their mind who they want to take. But
Yeah.
it's like that. But coming to my other interviews, of course, I thought my university interviews, obviously they had this whole gala welcome, and then lunch and dinner and whatnot. They had their whole thing going on where they're very welcoming and very very warm. When it comes to the interviews, they were just trying to know what personality, what personality you had. No medical questions or anything. Basically, just
Mm.
putting ethical scenarios in front of you, and then which have two answers. Something like if you made a mistake, what would you do? How would you deal with it? Would you own up to it, or what? So they have standard answers. Obviously, with Pavan's help, I was able to answer them fine. But yeah, getting back to the pre-match interviews, I pretty much felt that yeah, they are a little bit just in your face, and then if they'll really ask you questions that you're probably not expecting. But as long as you're answering them fine, you don't really need to be worried about anything, because whether you have an old year of graduation or whether you have average step scores, uh, I think as long as you give your best in the interview, and then you do the right amount of post-interview follow-up and all of that, things will come along your way eventually.
Mm. Mm. Okay. So as we wrap it up, last kind of questions for what are your message for the older graduates who may be applying next year? You have successfully navigated that. What do you recommend to others who may be planning this year?
I would say that, first of all, like, use your time in a wise way. Try to make things work in your favor, in the sense that if you know that you need to have everything ready by September, like start now. It's January. It's February right now. Like, that's the way you should start. I started doing this 6 months hands-on experience on March the 5th, I remember. But to start in March, I had to apply for this hands-on experience at the end of November, beginning of December the previous year. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you know that you're going to be applying next year, just apply on time. Like, do everything on time. wait till May or June to find something that like a recommendation letter or like a position in research or something like that. Because with 3 months, honestly, in advance from from applying, you're not gonna get too much. Even though I started in March and I requested my recommendations letter on August, some of them came at the middle of September. So you want to have everything ready for September 15th. The work starts a year in advance. It's a year. Like, don't think that, okay, I still have 6 months, 7 months. No. Start planning a year in advance because, like, also searching for the programs and going through all the details and making phone calls and everything takes time. So if you're going to leave looking for which programs you're going to be applying for the last minute, believe me, it's going to take you at least 72 hours working continuously to decide which programs you're going to be applying. That's one of the things. Second, don't waste your money in programs that it's very unlikely that you get an interview from them, either because of they have very strict requirements, and like for example, like they said like minimum 3 years of graduation. I would say that if you think that your profile is amazing, and even though you have more than 3 years of graduation, they are gonna give you an interview, go ahead for it. But before that, I would say call them. Call them and make sure, or email the program coordinator. I emailed many people, and I asked for them, it's like, are you being strict about your cutoff year of graduation? And they were like, yes, we are. Yes, we are. So that's what I would say. Like, just be careful about where you're applying, what you're doing, and how you do it. And again, work in advance about what you're going to be doing next year. Observer, hands-on research in advance to it, at least with a year of anticipation. So start now if you really want to match and apply for the next year.
All right. Thank you. Ehtisham, what about you? What are your closing thoughts for older graduates who are applying next year? What should they do?
Yes. So, I mean, obviously the disadvantage with older graduates definitely is they're being filtered out by a lot of programs. But what they can do, basically just 3 points, research, publications, and do not be shy. When you know someone in some program, even though they may or may not be really connected to the selection committee or whatever, just do not be shy. And then one thing that really helped me, that a lot of people ask me about my number of interviews and how it bumped up, is my letter of recommendation. I actually forgot mentioning that. My research mentor wrote me an amazing letter of recommendation. I mean, it was a 2-page letter of recommendation. A lot of people like 2-page, maybe it's too much, maybe the PDs don't have time to read it. I don't think so, because 2 of the programs that I went to, they specifically mentioned that I had a very good letter of recommendation. The first line in my letter of recommendation actually said that my research mentor wrote that out of the 20 people that I interviewed for this research position, I chose Ehtisham because of et cetera, whatever she wrote. Like, that was the first line. Like, that was the opening line, and then she talked about each of my publications in detail, that how I did, what I did, et cetera. So that, I think that really helped me, because, I mean, yeah, you can ask people to recommend you and everything, but your profile actually has to be good, and your letters actually also have to be good. They just cannot be like generic letters where, he's hardworking, he's punctual, asks good questions, et cetera. It has to be specific. And then, of course, I mean, if you have everything complete in your profile, you have to look for research. Finding research is not easy. I completely understand that. You have to make connections for that. And but that's the only thing that helped me. That's the only thing that turned things around for me. And then obviously pushing for publications, finding ways to get publications. Not every publication is going to be an original research article, so you can get reviews, mini reviews, posters, whatnot. And then of course, if you want to sit at home for another year, be shy. You can be like in your little den, not wanting to trouble people. And, you can grow your gray hair and then, get depressed and all. But then if you want to get matched, you have to be proactive.
Excellent. Thank you very much, guys. This is very, very useful. I am sure students next year will find it very useful. And congratulations once again on your success on your pre-match, and all the best. All right.
Thank you so much.